right. P, pick your ideas. So P was we had to pull apart the prompt. Now we're going to pick our ideas. We have done all the hard work. We have read the passage. We have reread the passage. We have taken notes. And now we have to go back and figure out what are the strongest details to put in our answer. So I'm going to go back to the do what again. Do what? It says explain how Native Americans got their food, clothing, and shelter. So it's a three-part question. So I'm looking for like three parts to answer it. So I'm going to find three different things to circle: an example for food, an example for clothing, an example for shelter. So when I look at this from our notes, I actually want to take this part about their religion and I'm just going to move it down here with their food. So we had talked about them praying, having ceremonies for a good harvest, which means they really believed that when they planted their food and they prayed, that's what got them their food. So I'm actually going to circle all of the information about farming. So this right here is one way. This is how they got their food. They were farmers. They got corn, beans, pumpkins, onions, and squash. They stored it for the year. They would gather sometimes. Sometimes they'd get nuts, bulbs, and roots. And they believed praying, that was a huge one, helped them get their food. For clothing, it said they grew. So right here, they grew cotton, which helped them make clothes. And they also would hunt, which was not frequent because remember, they're in the desert. They don't need that many items of clothing to protect them, to get them leggings, loincloths, and shoes. And the last part of my question was how did they get their shelter? So remember, where they lived was the desert. The natural resources they had were clay, rocks, and straw. And together, when they made them together, they built pueblos. So they lived in a desert. It was really easy to make them. And then that example we got about living, some of their shelters were in the cliffs. So we had to make an inference because it doesn't really tell us why, but remember they're in the desert and it's very hot and the sun is on you all the time. So I might make that assumption that if they're living in the cliffs, it gives them shade and an area to cool down and be protected from. All right, so there we go. I have three. I've answered the three-part question. I know how they got their food. I know how they got their clothing. I know how they got their shelter.